The mountains held their secrets like an old man clutching his most treasured possessions. Snow fell silently across the wilderness, covering everything in pristine white. Ranger Luke Maddox squinted at the screen showing the distress signal's coordinates. Another false alarm, he thought, but what awaited in that remote corner of the forest wasn't a lost hiker or damaged equipment. It was footprints. Perfect human footprints in untouched snow, 40 miles from any trail. No supplies, no signs of struggle. Just deliberate steps leading deeper into the frozen wilderness toward something ancient and waiting. What kind of creature leaves human prints but isn't human? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The dawn light filtered through the pines as Luke Maddox zipped his weatherproof jacket against the morning chill. He reached for the battered tin mug that had accompanied him on every expedition for 15 years. The ranger station was quiet this early, just the occasional crackle of the radio and the soft hum of computers mapping weather patterns. Luke ran his thumb over the faded insignia on his badge, the gold dulled by years in the wilderness. He pulled a tarnished pocket watch from his desk drawer. The glass was cracked, the hands frozen at 6:42, his father's last recorded time check before vanishing into these same mountains 2 decades ago. Luke kept it as a reminder of why he never took shortcuts, why he checked and double-checked every distress call. No matter how routine, the door swung open as Maya Chen entered, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, tablet computer already in hand. At 32, she was the youngest senior tech specialist in the service, brilliant with communications and tracking systems. Morning. Luke, coffee's ready, she said, nodding toward the station kitchen. And you've got that look again. What look? Luke raised an eyebrow, slipping the pocket watch back into his drawer. The one where you're having conversations with ghosts, she replied. Storm fronts building north of Widow's Peak. Garrett's pulling the weather models now. Garrett Hudson appeared in the doorway, his 6'4" frame nearly filling it. 20 years of survival expertise had left him with a weather-beaten face and eyes that missed nothing. Models say it's going to be a nasty one, Garrett said. Cooper's checking our gear. Says we should be ready if any hikers get caught in it. Cooper Reynolds, former military medic with 3 tours overseas, had joined their team last year. Quiet, efficient, with steady hands and a dark sense of humor that surfaced only when things got tense. Luke nodded, standing to examine the wall-mounted map of their jurisdiction. 800 square miles of wilderness, most of it untouched except by their boots. His fingers traced the familiar contours, lingering over the restricted zone to the north, where the terrain grew treacherous. Where his father had disappeared. Something's bothering you, Garrett observed, crossing his arms. Out with it. Just a feeling, Luke admitted. Dad used to say, the mountains speak to those who know how to listen. Maya's tablet emitted a sharp ping, drawing everyone's attention. Her brow furrowed as she studied the screen. That's odd. We've got a distress signal activating in Sector 17. Luke frowned. That's nearly 40 miles from any marked trail. Must be equipment malfunction. Signals weak but consistent, Maya replied, tapping commands into her tablet. Activated exactly 10 minutes ago, then went silent after 10 seconds. Cooper entered, medical pack slung over one shoulder. Someone trigger the lottery? Why the serious faces? Luke turned to the map, placing his finger on the remote sector. Distress beacon in the restricted zone. Probably another false alarm, Cooper said. Remember that moose that triggered the motion sensors last month? Could be, Luke agreed. But what if it's not? The room fell silent. They all knew the risks of the restricted zone, unpredictable weather, treacherous terrain, and communications blackouts that could leave them isolated for days. If someone's actually out there, they won't last long in this weather, Garrett said finally. Especially not with that storm rolling in. Luke turned to Maya. Get us a chopper. We'll do a flyover first. If there's something to find, we'll drop in and check it out. As the team dispersed to prepare, Luke opened the station's ancient wooden cabinet. Inside, secured in a leather case, was his father's compass, the glass scratched, the needle still true. He'd carried it on every mission since joining the service, a talisman against whatever had claimed his father. The helicopter would be ready in 30 minutes, just enough time to notify headquarters and gather emergency supplies. As Luke packed his gear, he couldn't shake the feeling that this call was different. The restricted zone had claimed many over the decades. Hikers, climbers, even seasoned rangers. His father had been the most experienced of them all, and even he never returned. Luke secured the compass in his breast pocket and zipped his jacket. Whatever waited out there in the wilderness, he would face it head-on, the way his father would have wanted. Preparations moved with practiced efficiency. The team had done this dozens of times before, though rarely for the restricted zone. Maya coordinated with dispatch while Cooper inventoried medical supplies, his fingers moving with military precision. Hypothermia kits, a trauma pack, extended antibiotics, he muttered, checking items off his mental list. Better pack the snakebite kit too. In October? Garrett asked, raising an eyebrow. Cooper shrugged. Rather have it and not need it. Garrett pulled the station's classified topographical archive from its locked cabinet. The leather-bound atlas contained detailed maps of areas too dangerous or sensitive for public knowledge. He carefully extracted a yellowed page marked with red boundary lines, the restricted zone. Last comprehensive survey was 12 years ago, he said, laying the map on the planning table. Terrain's likely shifted since then. 3 major rock slides reported by flyovers. Luke studied the map's contours, his fingers tracing the elevation lines. Signal came from here, he said, pointing to a remote valley shadowed by sheer cliffs. No natural caves marked, but these formations suggest the possibility of unmapped systems. Maya joined them, tablet in hand. Chopper will be ready in 15. But there's a complication. Headquarters is sending someone to join us. Join us? Luke frowned. Who? The station door opened, as if in answer. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the entrance, equipment bag slung over one shoulder, her expression unreadable behind dark sunglasses despite the dim morning light. She removed them, revealing sharp eyes that immediately found Luke's. Been a while, Maddox, she said. Tension thickened the air. Luke and Sarah's history was complicated, a relationship ended by career choices and unhealed wounds. 3 years since they'd worked together, 2 since they'd spoken at all. Dr. Chen, Luke said formally, didn't know wildlife management had interest in rescue operations. When distress signals come from restricted areas, everyone gets interested. She approached the map, studying it with practiced eyes. I've been tracking anomalous predator patterns in the North Quadrant for months. Headquarters thought I might provide valuable insight. Cooper glanced between them, sensing the undercurrent. I'll finish loading the medkits, he said, withdrawing tactfully. Garrett rolled up the map. I'll brief the pilot on approach vectors. As they left, Maya handed Sarah a tablet. I've uploaded our rescue protocols. Standard communication procedures. I remember them, Sarah replied, not looking up. When they were alone, Luke turned to her. Why are you really here, Sarah? She unzipped her bag, revealing specialized wildlife tracking equipment. 3 research teams disappeared in those mountains over 60 years. My father's team was the last, when I was just a child. Recently, wildlife has been avoiding a 50-mile radius around that valley. No birds, no mammals, not even insects. She pulled out a small metal case. I need to know why. Inside the case lay an old brass whistle, green with oxidation. This belonged to my father's field assistant, the only one whose body was recovered. I've spent my career working toward this. Moment, understanding dawned on Luke. You requested assignment when the signal appeared, just like you. Joined the Rangers after your father vanished. Her eyes held his. We're not so different, Luke. The station phone rang, breaking the moment. Maya answered, then called out, Helicopters here! Outside, the clearing below the ranger station had transformed into an improvised landing zone. The helicopter descended, its rotors churning the morning mist into swirling phantoms. The team loaded their equipment with practiced coordination. Garrett secured the map case inside his waterproof pack. Cooper stowed medical supplies in impact-resistant containers. Maya calibrated communication equipment against potential mountain interference. Luke found himself watching Sarah as she carefully packed her father's whistle back into its protective case. They'd both lost parents to these mountains. Now they were heading into the same treacherous territory, carrying the weight of questions that had shaped their lives. As they boarded the helicopter, Luke felt the familiar weight of his father's compass against his chest. The needle swung wildly for a moment before settling to north, pointing toward the distant peaks shrouded in mist and secrets. The helicopter lifted off, banking toward the restricted zone. Below them, the morning light revealed the vast wilderness like a rumpled blanket, beautiful, dangerous, and hiding whatever had triggered the distress signal 40 miles from any trail. The helicopter cut through low-hanging clouds, the terrain below transforming from dense forest to rugged highlands. Inside, the team sat strapped to benches along either wall, the drone of the rotors making conversation difficult but not impossible. "We'll stay at 2,500 feet until we reach the eastern ridge," the pilot called over his shoulder, voice crackling through their headsets. "Can't go lower in this visibility," Luke nodded, studying the tablet Maya had passed him. The distress signal appeared as a pulsing red dot against the topographical map. Isolated and surrounded by nothing but wilderness, signal patterns unusual, Maya observed, leaning toward Luke. "Most emergency beacons transmit continuously or in regular intervals. This one activated for exactly 10 seconds, then nothing. Could be failing equipment," Cooper suggested from across the cabin. "Battery giving out its last gasp," Sarah shook her head. "Or someone trying not to be noticed while still calling for help." The implication hung in the air as the helicopter banked gently to follow the rising terrain. Garrett pointed through the window. "Look there. Geological anomaly." Below them, a perfect circular depression, perhaps half a mile wide, interrupted the mountain landscape. No vegetation grew within the circle, just bare stone and what appeared to be scorched earth. "Natural formation?" Luke asked. "Not according to any process I know," Garrett replied. "It's like something just pressed down. There's been reports of similar formations near old mining sites," Sarah said. "My father documented 3 before his final expedition." Luke glanced at her. "You never mentioned your father was researching the same region as mine." "They were studying different things," Sarah answered, her eyes still on the landscape below. "Or so we thought." Maya's equipment chirped, drawing their attention. Signal fluctuated for about 3 seconds. "Still coming from the same coordinates," the pilot's voice interrupted, "coming up on restricted airspace. Flight ceiling drops to 1,500 feet by regulation. Weather's deteriorating ahead. How close can you get us to the signal origin?" Luke asked. "Not closer than 15 miles, not with this terrain and these conditions," the pilot replied, checking his instruments. "There's a clearing that might work for drop-off." "After that, you're on foot," Luke nodded. The team had prepared for this possibility. As they flew deeper into the mountain range, the landscape grew increasingly alien. Trees stood at impossible angles, as if straining away from certain areas. Streams flowed uphill in places, defying gravity. Strange rock formations jutted from the ground like broken teeth. Cooper shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone else notice there's no wildlife?" "Not even birds." "That's what I've been tracking," Sarah confirmed. "A dead zone that's been expanding for months." The helicopter rocked suddenly as it hit turbulence, causing equipment to rattle against the metal floor. The pilot struggled with the controls momentarily before stabilizing. "That's our signal to turn back," he announced. "Stormfront's moving faster than predicted. I can get you to the clearing, but you've got about 30 minutes before I need to be airborne again." "We'll make it work," Luke assured him. As the helicopter descended toward a small alpine meadow, Luke reached into his inner pocket and withdrew a creased photograph. The movement was so practiced that only Sarah, sitting directly across from him, noticed. She caught a glimpse of the image. 2 men standing at what appeared to be a cave entrance, scientific equipment visible in the background, and was unmistakably a younger version of Luke's father. The other, "Is that?" she began, but her words were lost as the helicopter touched down with a jolt. "Ground team, you're on the clock," the pilot announced. 30 minutes or you wait for extraction after the storm." The side door slid open, releasing a blast of cold mountain air. The team worked with efficient speed, unloading essential equipment and securing it in their packs. Maya established a communication relay with the helicopter's more powerful radio, while Cooper distributed emergency transponders to each team member. Sarah approached Luke as he shouldered his pack. "That man in the photo with your father. I need to know if it was mine." Luke's expression remained unreadable as he adjusted his straps. We can discuss it once we're moving," Garrett called out from the edge of the clearing, pointing to the tree line. "Tracks here. Recent. Someone definitely came this way." The team gathered, examining what appeared to be human footprints leading into the dense forest, in the exact direction of the distress signal. 30-minute timer starts now, the pilot reminded them. Rotors already beginning to spin up, Luke gave one final glance at the photograph before tucking it securely away. Whatever connection existed between their fathers and these mountains, they were about to step into the same mystery that had claimed them both. The helicopter's retreating thunder faded, leaving only the whisper of wind through pine needles. 5 figures stood at the forest's edge, eyes fixed on the footprints leading into shadow. "Single traveler," Garrett observed, crouching to examine the impression. "Recent, within the last day. Standard hiking boot, men's size 11. Direction matches our signal coordinates," Maya confirmed, checking her tablet. Luke studied the surrounding forest. The silence was oppressive. No birds called, no insects buzzed, no small animals rustled in the underbrush. Just the soft sigh of wind and their own breathing. "We follow the tracks," he decided. "Stay tight, maintain visual contact at all times." They moved in practiced formation, Garrett on point reading signs, Luke and Sarah in the middle, with Cooper watching their flanks and Maya bringing up the rear, monitoring communications and the distress signal. The forest grew denser as they advanced, old-growth trees towering above like ancient sentinels. Their footfalls were muffled by decades of accumulated pine needles. Patches of early snow lingered in shaded hollows, untouched and pristine. After an hour of steady hiking, Maya called a halt, signals fluctuating again. 3 seconds, same pattern as before. Sarah removed a small device from her pack, a handheld spectrometer. "I'm picking up unusual radiation signatures. Nothing dangerous, but not natural. Source?" Luke asked. She turned slowly, the device extended. "Everywhere. It's ambient, but growing stronger as we move forward." Cooper, who had wandered slightly ahead, called back, "You need to see this." 20 yards beyond, the forest opened into a small clearing. At its center stood the rusted remains of scientific equipment. A weather station, sample collection containers, and a tripod for what might have been a camera or surveying tool. All were decades old, consumed by rust and moss. Luke approached cautiously. "Government markings," he noted, brushing lichen from a metal box. "But no department identification." Sarah examined the equipment with growing excitement. "This could be from my father's expedition." The dating matches. Garrett, who had circled the clearing's perimeter, rejoined them. "Tracks continue on the other side. Same person, moving with purpose." Cooper opened his pack and removed a small medical scanner. "Standard procedure in wilderness rescues, checking for biological contaminants." He swept the device over the abandoned equipment. "Nothing dangerous, but there's something odd." The device emitted a soft tone as he passed it over a sealed metal container half buried in the soil. Cooper knelt, carefully extracting it. "Careful," Sarah warned. "If that's what I think it is." Cooper nodded, setting the container on flat ground. It was roughly the size of a lunchbox, its surface marred by exposure, but the seal intact. Military-grade locks secured the lid. "That's not standard research equipment," Luke observed. "No," Sarah agreed. "It's a biological sample container. Military-grade." Cooper examined the locking mechanism. "I recognize this. We used similar containers for handling potentially hazardous materials overseas. Can you open it?" Luke asked. Cooper considered. "Yes, but should we? Whatever's inside has been sealed for decades." A sudden crackle from Maya's equipment interrupted them. They turned to see her adjusting frequencies on her receiver, brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm picking up something on the emergency band," she explained. "Not our distress signal, something else." She increased the volume. Static hissed from the speaker, punctuated by what might have been words, too distorted to understand. "Can you clean it up?" Luke asked. Maya's fingers moved across her tablet. "Trying to isolate. There's definitely a voice." The static cleared momentarily, and a few broken words emerged. "Not alone. Changes. Watching us?" Then silence. The team exchanged glances as Maya worked to recover the signal. "It's gone, but I captured the audio file." Luke turned back to the container. "We need to keep moving toward the distress signal. Cooper, secure that container in your pack. We'll examine it at our next rest point." As Cooper carefully stowed the container, Sarah pulled Luke aside. "That recording, the voice pattern, did you recognize it?" Luke's expression remained neutral, but his eyes betrayed him. "Too distorted to tell." "Luke," she pressed, "if that was your father's voice." "We stick to the mission," he interrupted. "Find whoever triggered that distress signal. That's our priority." The temperature was dropping as afternoon waned. Their breath formed clouds in the increasingly chill air. "We've got about 3 hours of daylight left," Garrett noted. "Need to make camp before dark," Luke nodded. "We'll continue for another hour, then assess." As they prepared to move out, Maya played back the captured audio file, adjusting filters to reduce distortion. The words remained fragmented, but now one phrase came through with chilling clarity. "It's watching us from inside the trees." A gust of wind moved through the forest canopy, setting the branches swaying. 5 pairs of eyes instinctively looked up, suddenly aware of the thousands of shadowed spaces above and around them. Perfect hiding places for whatever might be watching. The light faded faster than it should have, as if the forest itself was drawing shadows around them. Garrett checked his watch with a frown. "Sunset's still an hour away. Shouldn't be this dark yet." Luke raised his hand, signaling a halt. "We make camp here. Standard perimeter, 30-foot visibility in all directions." They found a small depression, sheltered by rock outcroppings. Cooper and Garrett established the campsite with practiced efficiency, while Maya set up a communications array, angling the portable satellite dish toward the darkening sky. "Signals still live," she reported. "Same coordinates, same pattern. 10 seconds of transmission, then nothing. Whoever's sending it is still out there." Sarah unpacked her equipment in meticulous order: specimen containers, testing kits, and a small field microscope. She turned to Cooper. "Let's examine that container now." Cooper retrieved it from his pack, setting it on a flat rock. "Military-grade biocontainment. This locking mechanism requires a specific sequence." His fingers worked with practiced precision, manipulating the complex latch. "Almost there." The container opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Inside, nestled in protective foam, lay a plaster cast of a single footprint. "That's it?" Garrett asked, peering over Cooper's shoulder. "All that security for a plaster cast?" Sarah took it carefully, examining the impression. "This is a human footprint. But look at the details." Luke leaned closer. The cast showed what appeared to be a perfect impression of a bare human foot, except for subtle abnormalities. The toes were slightly too long, the arch impossibly high, and there appeared to be an extra joint in the middle of the foot. "What made this?" Cooper asked quietly. "Nothing in any taxonomic record," Sarah replied. "My father's journals mentioned footprints, but I assumed he meant bear or mountain lion tracks, misidentified by frightened researchers." "This is no misidentification," Luke said. "Whatever made this was bipedal, approximately human-sized, but definitely not human." Maya joined them, her attention suddenly drawn to her equipment. "I'm picking up movement on the motion sensors. 30 yards north, moving slowly." They froze, listening intently. The forest remained unnaturally silent. "Could be deer," Cooper suggested without conviction. "There are no deer here," Sarah reminded him. "No wildlife at all." Luke motioned for his rifle. "Cooper, with me. The rest of you, maintain position. The two men moved cautiously toward the perimeter, powerful flashlights cutting through the gloom. The beams played across ancient tree trunks and dense undergrowth, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow. "There," Cooper whispered, directing his light toward a cluster of boulders. Luke raised his rifle, sighting along the barrel. Movement confirmed. "Hold position." Something shifted in the shadows, a flowing motion too quick to track. Luke's finger tensed on the trigger, then relaxed. "Lost visual." Maya's voice came through their earpieces. "Multiple readings now. Whatever it is, it's circling the camp." Back at the campsite, Garrett had positioned himself between Sarah and the perimeter, his own rifle ready. Maya monitored her equipment, tracking the invisible movement. "It's testing our defenses," Garrett murmured. "Military tactic. Probe for weaknesses before engaging." Sarah continued examining the plaster cast, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. "The anatomical structure suggests adaptation to climbing. The extra joint would provide exceptional grip on vertical surfaces." A sudden crackle from Maya's equipment drew their attention. "The distress signal—" "It's changed," she announced. "Continuous broadcast now, same coordinates." Luke's voice came through their comms, pulling back to camp. "Maintain visual on the perimeter." As Luke and Cooper returned, a new sound emerged from the forest, a soft, rhythmic clicking that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "What is that?" Cooper asked, his voice tight. "Communication," Sarah suggested. "Complex patterns, possibly language." The clicking intensified, then abruptly ceased. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. "Thermal imaging," Luke ordered. Removing specialized goggles from his pack, he scanned the darkness beyond their chem, the device rendering the world in blues and greens. "Nothing registered, no heat signatures of any kind." "That's impossible," he muttered. "Everything living gives off heat, unless it's not warm-blooded," Sarah said. "Or not alive in the way we understand life." Luke continued scanning, until suddenly stopping, his body going rigid. 3 o'clock, near the large pine. "Something's there, but it's cold." Registering below ambient temperature, the team turned toward the indicated direction. At first they saw nothing. Then a shadow seemed to detach itself from a tree trunk, a darker darkness moving with deliberate purpose. Luke raised his rifle again, but Garrett placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Don't," he warned. "There's more than one." Slowly, they became aware of movement all around them, cold spots of nothingness shifting in the forest, watching with senses they couldn't comprehend. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadows withdrew, melting back into the darkness. Maya broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's exactly 40 miles to the nearest trail from here." They looked down at the plaster cast, the inhuman footprint now seeming to mock them with its familiar yet alien form. No one slept that night. They maintained watches in pairs, backs to the small fire, eyes straining into darkness that seemed to breathe with malevolent purpose. The clicking sounds returned periodically, always from a different direction, always stopping before they could pinpoint the source. Dawn arrived with sluggish reluctance, as if the light itself struggled to penetrate the forest canopy. Luke studied their map, tracing the route to the distress signal's coordinates. "If we maintain pace, we should reach it by mid-afternoon," he said, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "Assuming the terrain cooperates, and assuming nothing intercepts us," Cooper added. Checking his rifle for the third time that hour, Maya approached from the perimeter, where she'd been dismantling the motion sensors. "I've been analyzing last night's recordings. The clicking follows mathematical patterns, prime numbers specifically. It's too structured to be random animal noise." "Intelligence," Sarah confirmed. "Communication." Garrett, who had been scouting ahead, returned with tension evident in his stride. Trail continues. Same footprints as before. But there's something else now. Multiple tracks overlapping, all heading in the same direction. "How many?" Luke asked. "At least 5 distinct patterns, all similar to our plaster cast, humanoid but wrong somehow." They broke camp in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The forest seemed to close in around them as they moved deeper into the valley, following the mysterious tracks. The trees grew more twisted, with bark patterns that resembled watching eyes. 2 hours into their march, Cooper suddenly raised his hand, signaling a halt. Movement ahead. They froze, weapons ready. A branch cracked somewhere to their right. Then silence. There, Maya whispered. Pointing to a massive pine, something fluttered on its trunk, a weathered piece of paper, pinned by what appeared to be a bone fragment. Luke approached cautiously, rifle raised. When nothing emerged from the shadows, he reached out and carefully removed the paper. It was a torn page from a journal, the handwriting hurried and uneven, the paper yellowed with age. Damp had caused some of the ink to run, but most remained legible. Day 17, Luke read aloud. The specimens continue to evolve at an impossible rate. Henderson believes they're responding to our presence, adapting to observe us more effectively. The eyes have migrated to the sides of their heads, providing nearly 360-degree vision. They watch us constantly from the trees. God help us, I think they're learning. He turned the page over. There's more. Wilson disappeared last night. We found his equipment, but no blood, no signs of struggle. Just footprints circling our camp. They're mimicking us now, wearing our shapes like ill-fitting suits. Robert says we should burn everything and run. Too late for that. They're between us and the extraction point. All we can do is press forward to the cave system. If you're reading this, don't follow the tracks. They're not leading you to safety. Sarah took the page, examining it closely. The date, this was written 20 years ago. Her voice faltered. This handwriting, I recognize it. It's my father's. Luke's eyes met hers, confirmation passing between them without words. Their fathers had encountered the same phenomenon. Now history was repeating itself. Garrett examined the bone fragment that had pinned the note. Not human, he concluded. Not animal either. The structure's all wrong. Cooper kept his eyes on the surrounding forest. We should turn back. Call for emergency extraction. Communications are still down, Maya reminded him. No signal can penetrate whatever's interfering with our equipment. Besides, Luke added, there's still someone out there broadcasting a distress signal. We don't leave people behind. Are we sure it's people? Cooper asked quietly. No one answered. The question hung in the air like a physical presence. We continue, Luke finally decided. But we stay alert. Any sign of immediate danger, we fall back and reassess. They moved forward more cautiously now, hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow. The journal page had confirmed their worst fears. They were being hunted, studied, maybe even mimicked by something that defied conventional understanding. An hour later, the forest opened into a small clearing dominated by a rock wall. At its base, partially covered by fallen debris, was the unmistakable mouth of a cave. Signals coming from inside, Maya confirmed, checking her equipment. Continuous broadcast now. Garrett studied the ground. Multiple tracks converge here. Some going in, none coming out. Sarah's devices beeped with increasing frequency. Radiation levels rising near the entrance. Still not dangerous, but definitely not natural. Luke approached the cave mouth, flashlight probing the darkness beyond. The beam caught something reflective inside, metal gleaming against stone. Modern equipment, he reported. Someone's been here recently. Cooper joined him at the entrance, medical scanner in hand. I'm getting biological readings. Heartbeat, respiration. Someone's alive in there. Or something's setting a trap, Garrett suggested grimly. Luke checked his watch. We've come this far. We go in, find the source of the signal and extract. Quick and clean. As they prepared to enter, Sarah picked up a strange sound from her audio equipment, a human voice, barely audible, repeating the same phrase over and over. They're still in the walls. They're still in the walls. They're still in the walls. The cave mouth yawned before them like the threshold to another world. Cool air flowed outward, carrying the scent of mineral deposits and something else. An organic odor that reminded Luke of hospital disinfectant. Standard cave exploration protocol, Luke instructed, switching on his helmet lamp. I take point, Cooper covers rear, maintain visual contact at all times. They entered in single file, lights sweeping across stone walls, slick with moisture. The passage descended at a gentle angle. widening after about 20 yards into a chamber large enough for them to stand comfortably. "Signals stronger," Maya confirmed, checking her equipment. "Definitely coming from deeper inside." Sarah ran her hand along the wall, frowning at the texture. "These aren't natural formations. Look at the tool marks. Someone expanded this tunnel." Garrett nodded. "Old mining operation, maybe. This region was known for copper and silver back in the 1800s. More recent than that," Cooper observed, directing his light toward a section of wall braced with modern aluminum supports. These weren't available until the 1970s. Luke's beam caught something half buried in the sandy floor. He crouched, brushing away debris to reveal a vintage camera, a Hasselblad 500C, its once premium body now corroded and damaged. "Professional equipment," he noted, carefully lifting it. "Expensive." Sarah moved closer. "My father used Hasselblads for documentation. Said the image quality was worth the extra weight." Luke examined the camera more closely. "Film still inside?" He handed it to Maya. "Can you recover anything from this?" She took it gingerly. "Possibly. If the film chamber remained sealed, some images might be salvageable. I'll need controlled lighting conditions." A sound echoed from deeper in the cave, a metallic scraping followed by silence. "We're not alone," Garrett whispered, raising his rifle. Luke motioned them forward, moving with measured steps deeper into the passage. The tunnel branched after another 50 yards, one path continuing downward, the other rising slightly. "Signals coming from the lower passage," Maya indicated. "Split up?" Cooper suggested. Luke shook his head. "We stay together. Whatever's down here, I don't want anyone isolated." The lower passage narrowed, forcing them to proceed in single file. The walls here showed more extensive modifications, deliberate widening and reinforcement. Metal brackets had been installed at regular intervals, though whatever they once supported was long gone. The passage opened into another chamber, larger than the first. Their lights revealed what appeared to be an abandoned research station. Tables bolted to the floor, specialized equipment covered in dust, power cables running to dead generators. "Government project," Cooper identified, examining markings on one of the machines. "But not military. Different classification entirely." Sarah approached a workstation, wiping dust from its surface. "These are biological containment protocols," she noted, examining laminated sheets. "For studying unknown organisms." Luke directed his light toward the far side of the chamber, where the distress beacon sat blinking on a metal table. Its housing had been modified, connected to a larger power source. "Someone jury-rigged this to broadcast continuously," Maya observed, examining the setup without touching it. "Recently, but who?" Luke wondered. "And where are they now?" The sound came again, metal on stone, closer this time. All five turned toward a dark alcove their lights hadn't yet reached. Luke approached slowly, rifle ready. "This is Park Ranger Luke Maddox. Identify yourself." Silence, then a shuffling movement. A figure emerged from the shadows, hands raised. He was gaunt, bearded, dressed in tattered outdoor gear. His eyes reflected their lights like an animal's, unaccustomed to brightness. "You shouldn't be here," the man rasped, his voice hoarse from disuse. "None of you should be here." "We're responding to your distress signal," Luke explained, lowering his rifle slightly but maintaining readiness. The man laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Not my signal, theirs. They wanted you to come." "Who are you?" Sarah asked, stepping forward. The man's eyes widened as he focused on her face. "Chen? Elizabeth Chen's daughter?" A look of horror crossed his features. "You looked just like her before they took her." Sarah froze. "You knew my mother." "She died when I was an infant." The man shook his head vigorously. "Not dead. Taken, changed, like the others." "What's your name?" Luke pressed. "Richardson, Dr. Alan Richardson. Department of Unusual Biological Phenomena. Been hiding down here. Lost track of time. Days, years? They don't come in the deep tunnels. Too far from the trees. They need the trees." Cooper moved closer, medical training taking over. "He's severely dehydrated, malnourished, possible psychosis from isolation." Richardson jerked away from Cooper's approach. Don't touch me! Need to be sure you're real. Need to be sure you're not them. We're real, Luke assured him. We're here to help. Richardson's gaze locked onto Luke. Maddox, he whispered. You have his face. William Maddox's boy? Luke's breath caught. You knew my father? Richardson's eyes darted to the shadows. They're listening. Always listening. He lowered his voice further. Your father found it first. The original. Before it multiplied. Before it learned to copy. Copy what? Sarah asked. Richardson's face contorted with fear. Everything. Richardson's revelations hung in the stale cave air. Cooper administered basic medical care, while the scientist gulped water from an offered canteen, his hands trembling violently. How long have you been down here? Luke asked. Richardson shook his head. Time. Different. Hard to track. Found this place after the others were taken. 5 years, 10? Been living on cave fish, stored supplies. Sarah knelt beside him. You said my mother was taken, not killed. What did you mean? Richardson's eyes darted nervously. Your father was studying adaptation, how species evolved to environmental pressures. Your mother was analyzing samples when she noticed changes, cellular mimicry. By the time we understood, it was too late. He grabbed Sarah's arm with surprising strength. They look human. Perfect copies. But the mind inside, not human. The footprints, Garrett said. That's why they're almost perfect, but not quite. They're getting better, Richardson whispered, learning from each attempt. The first copies were crude, wrong proportions, movements too stiff. Now, his voice trailed off. Luke pressed for more. What happened to my father? William was security consultant, military background. He found the original specimen in a deeper cave system. Richardson's voice dropped further. Not from here. Not from anywhere on Earth. Maya, who had been examining the research equipment, called out. I've got something. On a dusty monitor, she had managed to restore partial power. The screen displayed topographical data of the surrounding mountains, with several areas marked in red. These are emergence points, Richardson explained, joining them on unsteady legs. Where they come out? Always near old-growth trees. Why trees? Garrett asked. Symbiotic relationship. They merge with them somehow. Use them as observation posts, as gateways. Richardson picked up a small rock from a nearby table. Found this near one of the first sites. He handed Luke what appeared to be a piece of metallic ore, unlike any mineral Luke had encountered. It had an unusual weight, and as he held it, his father's compass, secure in his breast pocket, began to spin wildly. What is this? Luke asked, noticing how the material seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Don't know. Not on our periodic table. It responds to thought. Proximity, the closer they are, the more it reacts. Cooper looked skeptical. You're saying this is alien technology? Not technology, Richardson corrected. Biology, advanced beyond our comprehension. They don't build tools, they grow them. Become them! Sarah examined the sample with professional interest. This explains the radiation readings. It's not radiation as we understand it. It's energy this material produces naturally. Luke placed the ore sample on the table, watching his compass slowly stabilize. If what you're saying is true, why hasn't anyone reported this? Why no official response? Richardson laughed bitterly. Who says there hasn't been? Why do you think this area is restricted? Governments known for decades. Containment was the strategy. Let them have this territory, keep people out. Problem was they kept expanding, learning, adapting. If they can copy people, how do we know who's real? Cooper asked the question they were all thinking. The eyes, Richardson replied. Something about the eyes is never quite right. And they can't replicate small personal details, memories, relationships, private experiences. Luke turned to the group. We need to document everything and get this information out. Maya, can you download any data from these systems? Maya nodded. Some, yes. The hardware is outdated but functional. Richardson, Luke continued, we need everything you know about these entities. Strengths, weaknesses, patterns. Cold, Richardson stated. They hate extreme cold. Slows their molecular structure, makes mimicry impossible. Heat accelerates them, makes them stronger, more adaptive. Garrett, who had been watching the cave entrance, interrupted. "Something's coming." Multiple somethings. They fell silent, listening. The distinctive clicking communication echoed down the passage, growing louder. "They found us," Richardson whispered, terror evident in every line of his face. "They always find us." "Options," Luke demanded, turning to Garrett. "Two exits from this chamber. Main passage we came through, and a smaller tunnel behind the research station. No idea where it leads." Richardson pointed to the smaller tunnel. "Deeper caves, colder. They avoid the depths." "Gather essential equipment and data," Luke ordered. "We're moving now." As they hastily collected vital items, Sarah noticed something in Richardson's hand, a worn leather journal. "Is that your father's?" Richardson confirmed. "His observations, his theories. Been keeping it safe. Take it. Understand what we're dealing with." Sarah accepted the journal reverently, securing it in her pack. The clicking sounds intensified, accompanied now by a strange scraping, as if something with too many limbs was scuttling along the stone. "Move out," Luke commanded, leading them toward the back tunnel as shadows began to shift at the main entrance, human-like shapes with subtly wrong proportions, moving with unsettling fluidity. The last thing they heard as they fled deeper into the earth was Richardson's voice. Suddenly calm and resigned, "They'll wear our faces when they return to the surface. No one will know the difference." The narrow tunnel forced them into single file, headlamps creating bobbing islands of light in the suffocating darkness. Luke led, with Sarah close behind, followed by Maya, then Cooper. Garrett brought up the rear, periodically glancing back for pursuers. Any sign of them? Luke called over his shoulder. "Nothing yet," Garrett replied, "but this tunnel's amplifying sounds. Hard to tell what's them and what's us." The air grew noticeably colder as they descended, their breath forming clouds in the beams of their lights. The walls narrowed further, forcing them to turn sideways in places to squeeze through. Temperatures dropping, Cooper noted. Good sign if Richardson was right about cold deterring them. After 20 minutes of difficult progress, the passage suddenly widened into a cathedral-like chamber. Their lights couldn't reach the ceiling, creating the impression of standing beneath an infinite void. The floor was relatively flat, covered with fine sand, interspersed with larger rock formations. "We'll rest here," Luke decided. 5 minutes to regroup. Sarah immediately opened her father's journal, paging through it with reverent care. "There are detailed observations here spanning months. Sketches, hypotheses, DNA analysis." Cooper crouched beside her. "Anything useful?" "Specifically, how to kill these things." She shook her head. "My father didn't think in terms of killing. He was trying to understand them." Her finger traced a diagram. "According to this, they're not individual entities at all. They're extensions of a larger organism, like the fruiting bodies of a fungus connected to a vast underground mycelium network." "So we're not dealing with separate creatures," Maya clarified. "But appendages of one larger organism?" "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "That's why they can communicate so effectively." "They're not communicating. They're one unified consciousness, experiencing multiple perspectives simultaneously." Garrett had been scanning the chamber with his light. "Something's different about this cave. Look at these formations." The team followed his beam to what appeared to be vertical columns, rising from floor to ceiling. Unlike natural stalagmites, these had perfectly symmetrical hexagonal patterns, their surfaces covered in faint, regular indentations. "These aren't geological," Sarah whispered, approaching one of the columns. "They're biological. Growth patterns." Luke moved to another section of the chamber where the sand had been disturbed. His light revealed a wooden crate half buried in the ground. "Over here." Together they uncovered a weathered shipping container. The wood had rotted in places, but metal reinforcement had preserved its structure. Luke pried open the lid, revealing stacks of leather-bound ledgers inside. "Mining company records," he announced, lifting one carefully. The pages were brittle with age, the handwriting faded but still legible. "Silver Creek Mining Operation 1887. Maya looked over his shoulder as he turned the pages. "Anything relevant to our situation?" Luke scanned the entries, flipping forward until something caught his eye. Listen to this. October 17th, 1887. Terminated all operations in Shaft 7 following the incident. 3 men lost. The foreman claims they encountered something in the deepest tunnel that was neither man nor beast. Remaining crew refuses to return. Sealing entrance with explosives tomorrow. May God forgive us for what we've awakened. They knew, Sarah said quietly. Even back then, they knew something was here. Cooper, who had been monitoring their back trail, rejoined the group. No sign of pursuit, but I don't like how sound carries down here. Anything could be hiding just beyond our light. Garrett approached one of the hexagonal columns, examining it closely without touching. These formations remind me of insect hives. Organized, purposeful. Luke continued reading from the ledger. Multiple entries about strange occurrences before the final incident. Workers reporting identical dreams. Tools disappearing and reappearing in impossible locations. A crew member found wandering miles from camp with no memory of how he got there. He turned the final page, where a single entry was written in different handwriting, larger, more urgent strokes. They are not gone. They are never gone. They sleep and wait in the walls. I'm the last. If you read this, burn everything and run. It's signed by someone named Joseph Miller, dated December 25th, 1887. 2 months after the mine was supposedly sealed. How did he survive down here that long? Cooper wondered. Maybe he didn't, Garrett suggested grimly. Maybe something was wearing his face. Maya, who had been examining her equipment, spoke up. I've got partial connectivity to the surface. Enough to send a basic emergency signal, but not voice communication. Send it, Luke instructed. Coordinates and a request for immediate extraction. Already done, she confirmed. But given our depth and the interference, I can't guarantee it got through. Sarah had moved to the far side of the chamber, studying another formation. I think I know what these columns are, she called. According to my father's notes, these could be dormant extensions of the central organism, like spores waiting for the right conditions to activate. Are they dangerous? Luke asked, joining her. Not in this state. The cold keeps them dormant. But if they warmed up, a distant sound echoed through the tunnel they had emerged from, the now familiar clicking, followed by what could have been Richardson's voice calling their names. They've taken him, Sarah whispered. They're using him to draw us back. Options? Luke asked, turning to Garrett. The survival expert pointed to a narrow opening on the opposite side of the chamber. That tunnel continues deeper, colder, but we don't know where it leads. Forward it is, Luke decided. Everyone grab what you need. We're moving. Now. The new passage descended at a steeper angle, requiring them to brace against the walls as they navigated downward. The temperature continued to drop, their exhaled breath now forming thick clouds in the frigid air. Luke estimated they were at least 500 feet below the surface. How much farther can we go? Cooper asked, his voice betraying fatigue. Air's getting thinner. We need defensible ground, Luke replied. Somewhere to regroup and plan our next move. Sarah studied her father's journal as they moved, using her headlamp to illuminate the pages. My father documented temperature thresholds. Below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the entities become sluggish. Below 30, they can barely maintain human form. Current ambient temperature is 27 degrees, Maya reported, checking a small thermometer attached to her pack. And dropping. The tunnel eventually leveled out, opening into another chamber smaller than the previous one. Unlike the cathedral space above, this room showed clear signs of human habitation, crates stacked against walls, the remains of an old camp stove, even a makeshift cot. Someone lived down here, Garrett observed, examining the setup. Recently, Luke approached a small metal desk bolted to the floor. Papers were scattered across its surface, held in place by a rusty miner's lamp. A logbook lay open, its final entry unfinished, the pen still resting in the crease. Cooper inspected the cot. No dust on the blanket. Whoever was staying here left in a hurry. Maya set up her equipment on a flat rock. I can try boosting our signal from here, but the rock density is working against us. Sarah moved to a corner where scientific equipment had been carefully arranged. Microscopes, sample containers, and what appeared to be a rudimentary laboratory setup. This is recent technology, she noted. Someone was conducting experiments down here within the last decade. While the others explored the chamber, Garrett systematically checked the perimeter. His light caught something unusual protruding from a crevice in the wall, a small metal case. He worked it free carefully. Found something, he announced, bringing the case to the group. Luke examined it. Government issue. Secure storage. The case was locked with a combination dial. After several attempts based on standard protocols, Cooper managed to open it. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was a Polaroid photograph and a small handheld device that resembled a radiation counter. Luke removed the photograph carefully. It showed their camp from the previous night, the exact arrangement of tents and equipment. In the background, Cooper could be seen standing watch, his rifle clearly visible. "That's impossible," Cooper whispered, staring at his own image. "I've never been here before." The timestamp on the photograph's border read 10/16/25, yesterday's date. "This doesn't make sense," Maya said, examining the photo. "How could someone have taken this and brought it here ahead of us?" Sarah looked up from her father's journal, her face pale. "Time doesn't work normally around these entities. My father theorized they exist partially outside our temporal framework." "English, please," Cooper requested. "They don't experience time linearly like we do," Sarah explained. "They can perceive events before they happen, from our perspective." Garrett took the photo, studying it carefully. "This isn't just about them watching us. This is about predicting our movements." Luke activated the device found with the photograph. Its screen illuminated, displaying a topographical map of the mountain with several pulsing dots. "It's tracking something," he observed. "5 stationary dots in this chamber, that's us. But there are others moving through the cave system. How many?" Garrett asked, looking over his shoulder. "At least a dozen, all converging on this location." Luke's expression hardened. "We walked into a trap. If they knew we'd be here," Cooper reasoned, "why haven't they attacked yet?" Sarah turned to a specific page in her father's journal. "Listen to this. The entity appears to feed not on flesh, but on neural activity, specifically fear, confusion, and despair. It herds its prey into situations of maximum psychological distress before harvesting." "It's toying with us," Maya whispered. "Playing a game?" Luke studied the tracking device more carefully. "Not all the dots are moving toward us. Some are heading for the surface. Richardson said they'd wear our faces," Cooper recalled. "What if some are already mimicking us, heading back to civilization?" The implications hung heavy in the frigid air. If copies of them reached the ranger station, reached populated areas, we need to warn people, Luke decided. Maya prioritized getting a message out. "Working on it," she replied, adjusting her equipment. "But even if I can connect, who would believe us?" Garrett, ever practical, was already examining their supplies. "We've got limited ammunition, food for 2 more days, and emergency flares." Luke indicated the tracking device. "This gives us an advantage. We can see them coming, and go where exactly?" Cooper asked. "We're running out of deeper." Sarah had been quiet, studying the chamber more carefully. "There's another exit," she announced, pointing to what appeared to be solid wall. "Look at the airflow patterns in the dust. There's a draft coming from behind that rock face." Luke examined the area she indicated. "It's been deliberately concealed. Help me move these crates." Together they cleared the space, revealing a narrow opening barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through sideways. "Where do you think it leads?" Maya asked. "Only one way to find out," Luke replied, aiming his light into the darkness beyond. The tracking device in his hand beeped urgently as more dots appeared on the screen, moving with unnatural speed through the tunnels above them. "We don't have much time," he warned. "They're coming." One by one they squeezed through the concealed opening, Cooper going last, struggling to fit his broader frame through the narrow gap. The passage beyond was different from the previous tunnels, smoother, with strange geometric patterns etched into the walls that caught and reflected their headlamps in disorienting ways. "This doesn't look natural," Garrett observed, running his hand over the perfectly flat wall surface. "Or man-made." "It's not," Sarah confirmed, examining the patterns. These are mathematical sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci series, fractals. More communication? Luke asked. More than that. My father believed these patterns were a form of data storage, information encoded physically into the environment. They followed the passage as it curved gently downward. The air grew noticeably warmer, a concerning development after the protective cold of the upper chambers. Temperature rising, Maya reported. 32 degrees and climbing. That shouldn't be possible this deep, Garrett said. Unless there's geothermal activity. The passage widened gradually until they could walk two abreast. After several hundred yards, it opened into a perfectly circular chamber, approximately 50 feet in diameter. The floor was unnaturally flat, and at the center stood a stone pedestal. Hold position, Luke ordered. Approaching the pedestal cautiously, resting on its surface was a flat, rectangular object about the size of a textbook. It appeared to be made of stone, covered with the same intricate patterns as the passage walls, but these glowed with faint bioluminescence, casting eerie blue-green light across the chamber. Some kind of tablet, Luke reported. Not touching it, Sarah joined him, her scientific curiosity overcoming caution. The patterns matched those in my father's journal. He called it their library. Can you read it? Maya asked. Not exactly read. But my father developed a basic understanding of the symbolic system. Sarah studied the glowing patterns, referring occasionally to the journal. It's complex, multidimensional, information layered within information. Cooper kept his attention on the tracking device. Whatever academic interest this holds, we've got company coming. Multiple signatures converging. How long? Luke asked. Minutes. Maybe less. Luke made a quick decision. Maya, set up your communications array. Try to get a signal out. Cooper, Garrett, defensive positions covering both entrances. Sarah, see what you can learn from that tablet. They moved with practiced efficiency. Maya deployed her compact satellite equipment, while Cooper and Garrett established firing positions with clear lines of sight. Luke checked the tracking device again. The entities were definitely closing in, but moving more cautiously now, as if uncertain. Sarah carefully photographed the tablet from multiple angles before attempting to interpret it. Based on my father's notes, this section appears to be a historical record, she said, pointing to one quadrant of glowing symbols. And this part, I think it's a map. Of what? Luke asked. The cave system, perhaps? Oh, she paused, eyes widening. Something much larger. A network extending far beyond these mountains. Good news, Maya interrupted. I've established a weak connection to the emergency satellite. We can transmit a basic message. Focus on the essentials, Luke instructed. Coordinates, nature of threat, request for containment protocol. And Maya, add that under no circumstances should they trust anyone coming out of these mountains, even if they look like us. While Maya composed the transmission, Cooper called out from his position, "Movement in the tunnel. Something's coming." They held their breath, weapons trained on the passage entrance. A shape appeared at the edge of their light, humanoid, but moving with unnatural smoothness, its features obscured in shadow. "Hold fire," Luke commanded as the figure emerged fully into view. It was Richardson, or something wearing Richardson's form. He looked exactly as they had left him, down to the tears in his clothing and the wild look in his eyes. But there was a subtle wrongness to his movements, as if his joints worked differently beneath the skin. "Found you," the Richardson thing said, its voice a perfect mimicry but lacking the scientist's fearful tremor. "Been searching. Others coming. Must hurry." "Stay where you are," Luke warned, raising his rifle. The creature tilted its head at an impossible angle. "Don't recognize." "It's me, Richardson, friend." Sarah stepped forward cautiously. "If you're Richardson, tell me what my father's last words were in his journal." The thing's face remained blank for a moment, then split into a too-wide smile. "No need tests. All friends here." "That's close enough," Luke said as the creature took another step forward. Its form suddenly shimmered, the human disguise becoming translucent in places, revealing something entirely alien beneath. A shifting mass of tissue with too many limbs folded impossibly into human shape. Cooper fired first, the gunshot deafening in the confined space. The bullet struck the creature's shoulder, causing it to stagger. Instead of blood, a black oil-like substance oozed from the wound. The entity made that familiar clicking sound. Louder now, almost like laughter. Its form rippled as it shed the Richardson disguise completely, revealing its true nature, a nightmarish amalgamation of human and insectoid features, with limbs that bent in impossible directions and skin that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. More clicking echoed from both tunnel entrances. "We've got multiple contacts," Garrett warned, his rifle trained on the second passage. "Maya?" Luke called. "Transmission sent, but I don't know if it went through." The first creature launched itself toward them with inhuman speed. Luke and Cooper fired simultaneously, the combined impact driving it backward. But it recovered almost instantly, the wounds closing as they watched. "The tablet," Sarah shouted. "We need to take it. It could be the key to understanding them, maybe even stopping them." Luke made the only decision he could. "Fall back!" "Secondary tunnel, move!" Chaos erupted as they fled through the secondary tunnel. Sarah snatched the stone tablet, wrapping it hastily in her jacket before shoving it into her pack. Luke and Cooper provided covering fire, while Garrett led Maya toward the escape route. The creature's clicking communication reached a frenzied pitch, echoing from all directions as more of them converged. One launched itself at Cooper, its limbs elongating impossibly. He fired point-blank into its center mass, the impact throwing it backward momentarily. "They don't stay down," he shouted, backing toward the tunnel entrance. "Go!" Luke ordered, tossing a flare into the chamber. The magnesium burn flared with blinding intensity, buying them precious seconds. The new tunnel twisted sharply downward, forcing them to half-climb, half-slide along its length. The sounds of pursuit faded slightly, suggesting the creatures were taking a different route to intercept them. After several minutes of desperate flight, they emerged into yet another chamber, smaller than the others, with multiple tunnel entrances branching off in different directions. The remnants of modern camping equipment littered one corner. A torn tent, cooking supplies, and portable lighting. "Someone else made it this far," Garrett observed. "Examining the gear." "Recently," Luke confirmed, checking the batteries in an abandoned flashlight. "Still functional." Maya slumped against the wall, exhausted. "Did anyone else notice they didn't follow us directly? Why wouldn't they pursue when they had the advantage?" "They're herding us," Sarah realized, catching her breath. "Like my father wrote, driving us towards something." Cooper secured the perimeter, checking each tunnel entrance. "Which means we probably went exactly where they wanted us to go." Luke examined the tracking device, its screen now showing fewer signatures, but moving with clear purpose through the cave network. "They're being coordinated, strategically positioned." Sarah removed her pack, carefully extracting the stone tablet. Even wrapped in her jacket, it emitted a faint glow. "This is more than just a record. My father believed these tablets were extensions of the central organism, like specialized organs. So we basically stole a piece of it." Cooper asked incredulously, "Which might explain their restraint," Garrett reasoned. "They want it back intact." While they spoke, Maya had been exploring the abandoned campsite. She knelt beside a charred backpack, extracting a partially melted plastic case. Inside was a memory card, somehow protected from the damage that had consumed the rest of the equipment. "Found something," she announced, holding up the small card. Luke examined it. "Standard SD card. Can you read it?" Maya nodded, inserting it into her tablet computer. After several attempts to bypass corrupted sections, a video file began to play. The footage was shaky, filmed by someone moving quickly through the same caves they now occupied. Heavy breathing and occasional muttered curses provided the only audio. The camera turned, revealing a face they all recognized instantly. "That's me," Cooper whispered in disbelief. Indeed, Cooper's face filled the frame. Same scar along his jawline, same military short haircut. But the timestamp showed a date 1 week in the future. "This is impossible," he insisted. Backing away from the screen, the video continued, showing all 5 of them setting up camp in the very chamber they currently occupied. The footage was undeniable. Same clothing, same equipment, same people. "Check your packs," Maya suggested quietly. See if there's anything you don't recognize. They did so with growing unease. Cooper found nothing unusual until he unzipped a side pocket he hadn't yet accessed. Inside was a small leather pouch he didn't recognize. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, revealing a set of dog tags, his own, but with a date of death stamped on them, tomorrow. "This isn't mine," he insisted, though the tags matched his in every detail, down to the distinctive dent in one corner. "I've never seen this before." Sarah had continued studying her father's journal while the others processed this discovery. "My father documented similar temporal anomalies. He called it chronological bleeding, past, present and future, overlapping in proximity to the central organism." "Are you saying we've been here before?" Luke asked. "Or will be here?" "Both, potentially. The entity exists partially outside linear time. It perceives time differently, more like a spatial dimension it can move through." Garrett, ever practical, cut through the metaphysical discussion. "Whether we've been here before or not, we need a plan now. These tunnels branch in 3 directions, and we have no idea which leads to safety." Luke studied the video playing on Maya's tablet. "If that's really us from the future, maybe we left ourselves a clue." They watched intently as future Cooper gestured toward one of the tunnels, saying something inaudible before the video abruptly cut to a new scene, all of them sleeping while someone kept watch. The camera panned across the chamber, lingering momentarily on a rock formation where something had been scratched into the stone, an arrow pointing to the leftmost tunnel, with the word "don't" beneath it. "Check that formation," Luke ordered, pointing to a rock column that matched the one in the video. Garrett moved to examine it. "There's nothing here." "No arrow, no writing, because we haven't carved it yet," Sarah realized. Maya looked up from her tablet, face pale. "There's more footage. You need to see this." The video jumped ahead, showing the team moving through a tunnel. The camera jerked violently as shouting erupted. For a brief moment it captured a creature in full pursuit, not mimicking human form, but revealing its true nature. And behind it, more shapes moving in the darkness, then screams. The camera fell, coming to rest at an angle that showed Cooper being dragged away, his face contorted in terror. The footage ended there. "That's tomorrow," Cooper whispered, looking down at the dog tags in his hand. Silence engulfed them as the video's implications sank in. Cooper stared at the dog tags in his palm, the metal catching the light of their headlamps. "This doesn't make any sense," he finally said. "How can I be wearing these tomorrow if I'm holding them now?" "Duplicates," Garrett suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. Sarah shook her head. "Look at the distinctive marking, that dent. It's identical to your actual tags." "We need to focus," Luke interrupted. "Future or not, this footage gives us information. That warning about the left tunnel, we heed it. But if we're seeing what happens in our future," Maya reasoned, "and we change our actions based on it, wouldn't that create a paradox?" "Unless the warning was always part of the loop," Sarah mused. "Us leaving a message for ourselves that we then follow, leading to the same outcome every time." Cooper's expression hardened. "I'm not interested in playing my part in some predetermined death scene." Luke surveyed their options. "The video warned against the left tunnel. That leaves center or right." "Wait," Maya said suddenly. "There's more footage. Corrupted segments I might be able to recover." While she worked on the damaged files, Garrett systematically explored the chamber, examining the abandoned equipment for anything useful. He found emergency rations, a damaged radio, and a leather-bound journal half-burned at the edges. "Another journal," he called out, carefully separating the fused pages. "Different handwriting from Sarah's father's." Luke joined him, examining the charred book. Most pages were illegible, but one near the center remained intact. "Day 7, it's playing with us. Every exit we find leads back to the same chambers in different configurations. Johnson swears we've passed the same rock formation 3 times, despite moving in a straight line. It's as if the cave itself is changing." Sarah was focused on the stone tablet, studying its glowing patterns. "These symbols are shifting, responding to our proximity or perhaps our neurological activity." Cooper maintained watch at the tunnel entrances, rotating between them with disciplined precision. "Nothing moving out there yet, but that could change any second," "Got it," Maya announced suddenly. Recovered partial footage. The new video segment showed a different perspective, shakier, filmed while running. It captured a glimpse of another chamber they hadn't yet encountered, with a distinctive crystalline formation at its center. Then a quick pan to Luke examining something embedded in the cave wall. The camera zoomed in, revealing a Ranger service badge partially absorbed into the stone surface. Luke in the video touched it with stunned recognition. "Dad's badge," his voice whispered from the recording. The footage jumped again, showing what appeared to be an argument among the team. No audio survived, but the body language suggested intense disagreement. Future Luke pointed repeatedly at one tunnel, while future Garrett gestured toward another. Finally, the group split, with Luke and Sarah taking one route, while Cooper, Garrett, and Maya took another. The footage ended there. "We split up," Cooper observed. "That's a classic mistake. And apparently I find my father's badge embedded in a cave wall," Luke added, his expression troubled.
"How is that possible?"
Sarah closed her journal. "My father documented instances of personal items being found in impossible locations. He believed the entity somehow extracted them from human memories and manifested them physically. It's trying to manipulate us," Garrett concluded. "Or test us," Sarah suggested. "My father thought it was studying human reactions, human emotions." Luke pulled out his father's compass, checking it again. Rather than pointing north, the needle now spun in a slow circle, as if trying to find direction in a place where conventional magnetism held no sway. "We need to make decisions based on what we know, not what we've seen in some possible future," he stated firmly. "We stay together, take the center tunnel, and maintain constant communication." Cooper nodded in agreement, but his eyes kept returning to the dog tags. Maya packed away her equipment, securing the memory card in a waterproof case. Garrett distributed the salvageable supplies from the abandoned camp. As they prepared to move out, Sarah made one final examination of the tablet. "I think I understand part of what these symbols represent. This section here, it's not just a map of the cave system. It's showing junctions between our world and somewhere else, portals," Luke asked, "more like permeable boundaries. Places where the barriers between dimensions are naturally thinner." "And let me guess," Cooper said grimly. "We're heading right for one," Sarah nodded slowly. "If I'm interpreting this correctly, the central tunnel leads to what my father labeled the primary junction, the place where the entity first entered our world." Luke made the final decision. "Then that's where we need to go. If there's any hope of understanding what we're up against, maybe even finding a way to stop it, it would be there." They moved toward the center tunnel, each lost in their own thoughts. Cooper went first, determined to defy the fate shown in the video. Maya followed, then Sarah with the tablet secure in her pack. Garrett took position behind her, with Luke bringing up the rear. As Luke passed the rock formation from the video, he paused momentarily, then used his knife to carve an arrow pointing to the left tunnel, with the word "don't" beneath it, completing the loop that their future selves had started. The central tunnel differed from the others they had traversed. Its walls were smoother, almost polished in places, with those same mathematical patterns etched deeper and more precisely. The air grew warmer, heavy with mineral scents and something else, an organic odor reminiscent of overripe fruit. "Temperatures rising," Maya noted. 38 degrees now." "If Richardson was right about heat accelerating these things," Cooper said, "we're heading into their comfort zone." They moved in tight formation, weapons ready. Luke checked the tracking device periodically, but its screen had become erratic, showing signatures that appeared and disappeared randomly. "Either it's malfunctioning or there's interference," he concluded. "Or they're moving through spaces the device can't track," Sarah suggested. "Dimensional pockets, perhaps." After 20 minutes of cautious progress, the tunnel widened into a junction with 3 smaller passages branching off. Garrett examined the ground, finding scuff marks and footprints. "Someone came through here recently," he reported. "Same boot treads we've been following since the beginning," Luke crouched to examine the prints. Single individual, still moving purposefully. No signs of injury or distress. How's that possible? Cooper wondered. After everything we've seen down here, how could anyone just stroll through unharmed? Sarah had been studying the wall patterns. These markings are changing as we watch, she observed, responding to our presence. The etchings did indeed seem to shift subtly, rearranging themselves in ways that defied normal perception. Looking directly at any pattern caused it to appear static, but the peripheral patterns moved when not directly observed. Don't stare at them too long, Luke cautioned. Let's keep moving. They chose the center passage again, following the mysterious footprints. The tunnel descended at a gentle angle, the temperature continuing to rise incrementally. Maya's equipment began to exhibit sporadic malfunctions, screens flickering, compass spinning wildly. Electronic interference is getting worse, she reported. Something's generating a powerful electromagnetic field. The passage curved sharply, then opened into a vast cavern, larger than any they had encountered before. Their combined lights couldn't reach the ceiling or far walls, creating the impression of standing at the edge of an underground void. A natural stone bridge extended from their position to what appeared to be an island of rock in the center of the darkness. And on that central platform, illuminated by an unknown source, was a structure. That's not natural, Cooper stated the obvious. The construction resembled a primitive hut at first glance, assembled from mismatched materials, wooden beams, metal sheets, canvas, and stone. But upon closer inspection, the design revealed alien precision. Every angle formed exact mathematical relationships, every support positioned for maximum structural efficiency. Someone built a shelter in the middle of this cavern, Garrett observed. But why there? Why not against a wall for protection? Luke studied the stone bridge, the only apparent access to the central platform. Let's find out. Cooper, Maya, maintain position here. Garrett, Sarah, with me. Splitting up doesn't seem wise, Cooper objected. We're not splitting up, Luke clarified. You're covering our approach. Any sign of trouble, signal immediately. The three advanced cautiously across the bridge, testing each step before committing their weight. The stone was unnaturally smooth, almost like polished marble. When they reached the structure, Luke circled it once before approaching the entrance, a low opening covered by what appeared to be military canvas. "Hello?" he called. "Anyone inside?" Silence answered. Luke nodded to Garrett, who took position beside the entrance, weapon ready. Luke pulled back the canvas and directed his light inside. The interior was larger than the exterior suggested, impossibly so. It contained a meticulously organized living space, with shelving, a sleeping area, and what appeared to be a research station. Maps covered one wall, with string connecting various locations. Notes written in faded ink filled the margins. This has been here for years, Luke realized, examining the accumulated dust. Decades, maybe. Sarah approached the research station, where notebooks were stacked in precise order. "These are my father's," she whispered, recognizing the handwriting. "And this equipment? It matches what he was using on his last expedition." Luke found a wooden trunk beneath the makeshift cot. It was secured with a combination lock, the metal worn but intact. After a moment's consideration, he tried his father's badge number, and the lock clicked open. Inside lay a collection of items arranged with military precision: clothing, preserved rations, ammunition, and a leather case. Luke opened the case with trembling hands. Inside was a homemade weapon unlike anything he had seen before, a modified rifle with additional components attached to the barrel and stock. Copper coils wrapped around a central chamber containing what appeared to be one of the strange ore samples they had encountered earlier. "What is this?" Luke wondered aloud. Sarah examined it without touching. Some kind of focused electromagnetic pulse weapon, perhaps. The design suggests it's meant to disrupt energy fields. Garrett, who had been watching the entrance, suddenly stepped inside. "You need to see this," he said urgently. They followed him out to find Cooper and Maya crossing the bridge toward them, moving with controlled urgency. "Something's coming," Cooper reported. Multiple contacts, all tunnels. They've stopped hiding. As if confirming his words, that familiar clicking communication echoed across the cavern, amplified by the vast space into an almost deafening chorus. Shadows moved at the tunnel entrances, dozens of them, more than they had seen before. Inside, Luke ordered. Now! The 5 of them crowded into the shelter, securing the canvas entrance behind them. Cooper and Garrett took defensive positions at the 2 small windows, while Maya set up her remaining functioning equipment on a makeshift table. "They're not attacking," Cooper reported, peering through a narrow opening. "Just watching." Luke examined the modified weapon more carefully. It had been constructed with remarkable precision despite the limited resources available. Notes in his father's handwriting detailed its operation. The strange ore sample served as both power source and focusing mechanism for disrupting what he called the entity's coherence field. My father built this, Luke realized, designed specifically to fight these things. Sarah was immersed in her father's notebooks, flipping through pages with growing excitement and horror. My father's final entries. He discovered the truth about the entity. Which is, Maya prompted, it's not extraterrestrial as Richardson believed. It's extra-dimensional, a being that exists primarily in a reality adjacent to ours, only partially manifesting here. She turned the notebook to show complex diagrams of overlapping planes. It first broke through during the 1887 mining operation when explosives weakened the dimensional barrier. Luke lifted a metal container from the trunk. Inside was a viscous black substance sealed in a specialized container, sample of the entity itself, Sarah identified, examining the label. My father called it essence, the base material from which all its extensions are formed. Garrett remained vigilant at his window. Those extensions are surrounding us right now. At least 30 that I can see, holding position just beyond the bridge. Why aren't they attacking? Cooper wondered. This shelter, Sarah realized, continuing to read. According to my father's notes, he and Luke's father discovered that certain mathematical arrangements, specific geometric patterns, repel the entity. They built this structure using those principles. A safe house in the monster's lair, Maya observed. Luke turned to Sarah. Any mention of how to destroy these things permanently? She shook her head. Not destruction, containment. The entity can't be killed in our conventional understanding. It exists across multiple dimensions simultaneously, but it can be forced back to its original dimension and contained there. How? Luke demanded. Sarah flipped forward several pages. They were developing a plan using precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses to destabilize the dimensional anchors the entity established. The weapon is part of it, but they needed something more, a way to locate and target all anchors simultaneously. Cooper suddenly tensed. Movement on the bridge. One of them is approaching. They all turned to watch as a single figure crossed the stone span, a perfect replica of Richardson, moving with unnatural smoothness. It stopped halfway, just staring at the shelter. It's testing the boundaries, Sarah suggested. The Richardson copy suddenly spoke. Its voice a perfect mimicry, but the cadence wrong, as if reading from a script it didn't understand. William Maddox, Elizabeth Chen, finished what they started. We will too. Luke felt a chill at hearing his father's name from the creature's mouth. What do you want? He called back. The thing tilted its head at an impossible angle. To understand, to become, to merge. It's trying to communicate, Sarah whispered. In terms it thinks we'll comprehend, the entity continued. Your barriers temporary. Your resistance inefficient. Inevitability remains constant across all timelines. Timelines, Maya echoed. It's confirming multiple temporal iterations. We've done this before, Luke realized. Or versions of us have. That's how it knows our parents' names, knows what to say to unsettle us. Cooper kept his rifle trained on the entity. How many times has this played out? Across probable iterations, this convergence has occurred 3,427 times, the thing replied, its voice modulating to mimic different human tones mid-sentence. Outcome variance minimal. It's saying we've lost every time, Garrett translated grimly. What does it mean by merge? Luke called out. The Richardson copy's face stretched into an approximation of a smile, the expression uncanny and wrong. Biological and consciousness integration. Humans' efficient neural templates. Valuable data storage. We preserve what we absorb, Sarah gasped, understanding dawning. It doesn't just copy us, it absorbs consciousness. That's why it manifests items from memory, knows things only we would know. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Our parents might still exist in some form, absorbed into the entity. The creature took another step forward, still smiling that terrible smile. William Maddox, resistance admirable. Elizabeth Chen, comprehension superior. Both preserved. Both valued. Luke felt his blood run cold. My father is still conscious within that thing? Not as you understand consciousness, the entity replied. Better. Part of greater whole. While it spoke, Maya had been quietly working with her remaining equipment, connecting components in a new configuration. She gestured subtly to Sarah, who understood immediately. The tablet, Maya whispered. It's connected to the main organism. If I can interface with it, maybe download or analyze its patterns. Sarah carefully removed the stone tablet from her pack, keeping it shielded from the creature's view. She passed it to Maya, who connected specialized sensors to its surface. Diversion, Maya mouthed silently to the others. Luke nodded almost imperceptibly, then addressed the creature again. If you've done this thousands of times, you know what happens next. We fight, we lose. The cycle continues. The entity's Richardson face remained eerily calm. Some variations exist. This iteration unique. Tablet removal unexpected. Memory card discovery premature. William Maddox's weaponry discovery probable, but timing variant. It's analyzing divergences from the usual pattern. Sarah explained quietly. Then you know we might succeed this time, Luke challenged. The creature's form shimmered slightly. Richardson's features becoming momentarily transparent. Probability negligible. Outcome inevitable. Behind them, Maya's equipment hummed to life, interfacing with the stone tablet. The glowing patterns intensified, pulsing in complex sequences. What are you doing? The entity demanded. Suddenly alert, its voice losing its human qualities, becoming a discordant clicking layered with fragments of speech. Maya didn't look up from her work. I think I've found something, she whispered urgently. A map of the anchors, the points where it's tethered to our dimension. If we can target them all simultaneously, the creature abandoned all pretense of humanity. Its form rippling and shifting into something approximating its true nature, a writhing mass of limbs and sensory organs, still vaguely humanoid but horrifically alien. Stop, it commanded, the single word reverberating through the cavern with physical force. Dozens more entities appeared at the cavern's edge, all shedding their human disguises simultaneously. I think we hit a nerve, Cooper observed grimly, raising his rifle. The shelter's protective geometry held as the creatures converged at the edge of the bridge, their forms shifting between human mimicry and their true alien nature. The clicking communication reached a fever pitch, reverberating through the cavern like a physical force. They can't cross the bridge, Garrett observed. Something about this structure is keeping them at bay. Not for long, Sarah warned, still reading through her father's notes. According to this, they eventually adapt to the mathematical barriers. It's just a matter of time. Luke examined the modified weapon, following his father's detailed instructions for activation. The strange ore began to glow as he connected the power source, emitting a low hum that made their teeth vibrate. Maya, talk to me, he demanded. What have you found? Maya's fingers flew across her tablet, interpreting data from the stone tablet. 7 primary anchors throughout the cave system. They function like roots, keeping the entity tethered to our dimension. If we could destabilize them simultaneously, we'd force it back to its original dimension, Sarah finished. Exactly what our parents were attempting. A rattling sound drew their attention. Cooper pointed to a small recording device on a shelf that had spontaneously activated. Static hissed from its speaker, then resolved into a voice they all recognized, Luke's father. If you're hearing this, you found our research base. I don't know who you are or when you're listening, But this message has been set to activate when the weapon is powered up. William Maddox's voice was calm, despite the obvious tension underlying his words. Elizabeth and I discovered that the entity exists across multiple timelines simultaneously. We've lived through this scenario repeatedly, with small variations each time. The team exchanged glances as the recording continued. We've developed a theoretical approach to containing the entity permanently. The weapon you've found generates a specific electromagnetic frequency that disrupts the entity's cohesion. But it's only effective against the primary hub, what we call the heart. Luke looked down at the weapon in his hands with new understanding. The heart is located in the lowest chamber, approximately half a mile below your current position. It's the entity's first and strongest connection to our dimension. The problem is accessibility. The heart is surrounded by the entity's essence, which reacts violently to human presence. Sarah turned pages in her father's notebook until she found a diagram of the chamber described. We've tried multiple approaches across multiple iterations. William's voice continued. Direct assault fails every time. The essence adapts too quickly. But we've identified a potential solution, a specific frequency that temporarily paralyzes the entity when broadcast through its own network of tunnels. Maya's eyes widened. The patterns on the walls, they're not just communication, they're a transmission network. Elizabeth discovered that the tablet you likely have in your possession contains the complete frequency pattern. The difficulty is generating enough power to broadcast it throughout the entire cave system simultaneously. William's voice grew more urgent. In previous iterations, we've died trying to implement this plan. But each time, we've left behind more information, more refinements. This recording itself is an example. In our first attempt, we left nothing. Now we're trying to change the outcome by reaching across timelines. Is this why we keep finding evidence of ourselves doing things we haven't done yet? Cooper asked. Our future selves leaving clues for past iterations. Temporal contamination, Sarah nodded. The entity's nature allows information to bleed between timelines. William's voice continued. We've prepared equipment to generate the broadcast, but it requires manual activation at 3 separate locations simultaneously. The primary transmitter is in this shelter, but 2 additional units need to be positioned at specific junctions in the tunnel system. Luke recalled the video showing their teams splitting up. Now the reason became clear. Once the broadcast begins, you'll have approximately 10 minutes to reach the heart chamber and use the weapon before the entity adapts. This is the point where we've failed in every previous attempt. The recording paused. Then William's voice returned, softer now. Luke, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry I never came home. I made a choice to stay and fight this thing. Your mother would be proud of the man you've become. Luke's throat tightened at his father's words. One final note, William concluded. The entity preserves what it absorbs. In a very real sense, Elizabeth and I still exist within it. When you strike at the heart, you'll be releasing us too. We're counting on you to succeed where we couldn't. End this cycle, once and for all. The recording clicked off, leaving them in silence, broken only by the continuous clicking of the entities outside. How did he know you'd be here? Cooper asked Luke. Pattern recognition across timelines, Sarah explained. If Luke found this place in thousands of previous iterations, the probability approached certainty. The transmitters, Garrett prompted. Where are they located? Maya indicated points on her tablet. One's here. The other 2 are at junctions we passed earlier. We'd need to split into 3 teams to activate them simultaneously. That's why we separated in the video, Luke realized. Not a mistake, necessity. The creatures outside had begun testing the bridge. When cautiously extending a limb onto its surface before retreating. They're learning the safe boundaries, Cooper warned. Won't be long before they figure out how to cross. Luke made his decision. We follow my father's plan. Maya, Sarah, you stay here with the primary transmitter. Cooper, you take the 2nd location. Garrett and I will take the 3rd, then proceed to the heart chamber with the weapon. That's exactly what they expect, Cooper objected. If we've done this thousands of times and failed, then we change something fundamental, Luke agreed. Maya, can you modify the broadcast frequency? Something they wouldn't anticipate? She considered. The tablet contains multiple frequency patterns. If I select one that hasn't been used in previous iterations, do it, Luke ordered. Everyone else, gather only essential equipment. We move in 5 minutes. As they prepared, Sarah approached Luke privately. You heard what your father said. Our parents are part of the entity now. If we succeed, I know, Luke said quietly. We'll be setting them free. One way or another, the plan came together with grim efficiency. Maya modified the transmitters while Sarah plotted the optimal routes through the cave system. The entities outside maintained their distance, watching with inhuman patience as if aware of what was coming. They know what we're planning, Cooper observed. They've seen it before. But not exactly this way, Maya countered, making final adjustments to the frequency settings. I've selected a harmonic pattern that doesn't appear in any of the previous documentation. Luke checked his father's weapon one final time, ensuring the power core was stable. The transmitters need to activate simultaneously. Synchronize watches. We go on my mark at exactly 20 hours. Sarah approached him, holding a small metal case. I found this with my father's things, she said, opening it to reveal 3 syringes filled with clear blue liquid. According to his notes, it's a neural protectant. The entity's proximity causes psychological effects, hallucinations, confusion, memory disruption. This should provide temporary immunity. Each team leader took a syringe, Luke, Cooper and Sarah. The injection stung momentarily, then spread a cold clarity through their minds. Comms check, Luke ordered as they tested their radio equipment one final time. Team 2 ready? Cooper confirmed. Team 1 standing by, Sarah acknowledged. Garrett examined the bridge. The entities are pulling back. They're clearing a path. They want us to try, Luke realized. They're confident we'll fail again. The team's prepared to move out, each carrying a portion of the specialized equipment. Luke took Cooper aside for a final word. Those dog tags we found, they don't determine your fate. We're changing the variables this time. Cooper nodded, his jaw set with determination. See you on the other side of this, boss. As Cooper's team departed through one exit, Luke turned to Sarah. Your transmitter is safest here. Once Garrett and I reach our position, we'll signal for simultaneous activation. What happens after you reach the heart chamber? She asked quietly. According to my father's notes, I'll have a narrow window to use the weapon directly on the primary mass. It should create a cascading reaction, forcing the entity back to its dimension. What remained unspoken was the danger. No one, in thousands of iterations, had successfully completed this final step. Sarah hesitated, then reached into her pack and removed a small object wrapped in cloth. I found this among my mother's belongings, she said, unwrapping it carefully. It was a small recorder, similar to the one that had played William's message, but more compact. A handwritten label read, "For Sarah, if you find this place." Luke looked at her questioningly. Have you listened to it? Not yet. I wasn't ready. She took a deep breath. But I think you should take it with you. If something happens to me, at least one of us should hear what she had to say. Luke accepted the recorder, securing it in his pocket next to his father's compass. We're both making it out of here, Sarah. This time will be different. The moment for departure arrived. Luke and Garrett moved out, navigating through a side passage that the entities left conspicuously unguarded. The clicking communication followed them, echoing from the walls like mocking laughter. They descended through increasingly organic-looking tunnels, where the stone itself seemed alive, pulsing subtly, warm to the touch. The mathematical patterns grew more complex, occasionally shifting when viewed directly, 200 meters to the junction. Garrett reported, checking the map Maya had prepared. No sign of pursuit, but I don't like how easy this has been. Luke checked the tracking device, which now showed the entities maintaining distance while still surrounding them. They're herding us again, letting us think we're in control. They reached the designated junction, a small chamber where 3 tunnels converged. According to Maya's calculations, this was one of the critical nodes in the entity's transmission network. Garrett quickly set up the equipment while Luke kept watch. "In position," Luke reported via radio. "Team 2, status." "At the second junction," Cooper's voice crackled through static. "Ready on your mark." "Team 1 standing by," Sarah confirmed. Luke checked his watch. 60 seconds to synchronization. As they waited for the countdown, Luke noticed something odd about one section of wall. Unlike the other surfaces covered in mathematical patterns, this area was smooth, almost reflective. He approached cautiously, his light revealing what appeared to be a series of human handprints embedded in the stone. Dozens of them, of varying sizes. "What is this?" he muttered. Garrett joined him, examining the wall with growing unease. "Some kind of record? Trophies?" Luke placed his hand near one of the impressions and froze. The size, shape, even a distinctive scar across the palm, matched his exactly. Beside it was a smaller print that could only belong to Sarah, and others he recognized as Cooper's, Garrett's, and Myers. "It's us," he realized. "From every iteration, every time we've been here before." 30 seconds, Garrett reminded him, returning to the transmitter. Luke forced himself to focus, pushing aside the disturbing implications of the handprint wall. He took position at the activation controls, watching the seconds count down. 10 seconds. 5. "Activate now!" All three teams triggered their transmitters simultaneously. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the walls themselves began to resonate, the mathematical patterns glowing with increasing intensity as the specialized frequency propagated through the cave system. A howling sound filled the tunnels. Not quite physical, not quite mental, as if reality itself was protesting. The entity's clicking communication rose to a desperate pitch, then cut off abruptly. "It's working!" Luke shouted over the noise. "Move to phase 2!" The transmitters continued broadcasting as Luke checked the route to the heart chamber. According to his father's notes, they had approximately 10 minutes before the entity adapted to the frequency. "This way," he directed Garrett, heading toward the lowest tunnel. "The heart chamber is half a mile down." As they moved, the cave system itself seemed to react to their presence. The walls rippling like disturbed water, the air growing thick and difficult to breathe. Their headlamps revealed glimpses of the entity's true nature, sections of tunnel where reality seemed to fold in on itself, where physical laws became mere suggestions. Luke's father's weapon hummed with increasing intensity as they descended, the strange ore at its core pulsing in response to their proximity to the heart. The neural protectant Sarah had given them was all that kept their minds clear as reality distorted around them. "Luke," Garrett's voice sounded strained. "Something's happening." Luke turned to find his companion staring at his own hands with horror. Garrett's skin had begun to ripple subtly, as if something beneath was trying to emerge. "The protectant isn't working for you," Luke realized. "The entity's influencing you." Garrett's eyes met his, still lucid despite the physical changes beginning to manifest. "I'll hold it off as long as I can." "You need to reach the heart." "I'm not leaving you behind," Luke insisted. "You don't have a choice," Garrett replied, his voice already changing, becoming layered with other tones. "It's adapting faster than we anticipated. This is where the plan always fails." Before Luke could respond, the tunnel ahead collapsed, forcing them to take an alternative route, one that separated them. The last thing Luke saw was Garrett fighting to maintain control of his own body as the entity began to absorb him. Alone now, Luke pressed forward, the weapon's hum becoming a high-pitched whine as he descended toward the heart chamber. The 10-minute window was nearly expired. He could feel the frequency's effect already weakening as the entity adapted. The tunnel opened abruptly into a vast, spherical chamber. And there, suspended in the center, pulsing with otherworldly energy, was the heart, a writhing mass of the entity's essence, glowing with the same patterns they had seen throughout the caves, but 1,000 times more complex, more alive. Luke raised the weapon, preparing to fire directly into the pulsating heart. As he did, Hundreds of faces seemed to form and dissolve in the undulating mass, every person the entity had absorbed over centuries, including his father and Sarah's parents. His finger tensed on the trigger.